Okay, let's get to our third pitcher, Logan Gilbert. What is your grade for Logan Gilbert this season?
I gave Logan an A-, and we talked about it. Another awesome year. His ERA was a little bit higher than Luis and George's was, so that's something you have to take into account. Although I will say his peripherals were pretty similar to Luis. Look, Logan's another guy that just pounded the strike zone this year. He wasn't walking anybody. While he wasn't at George Kirby level, he wasn't far off. His walks per nine ranked 4th in baseball, which was a massive step for Logan this year. Another guy that threw nearly 200 innings. And he just took another step. Like when the Mariners needed him down the stretch, he had some pretty good starts toward the end. So Logan Gilbert, again, he can continue to get better, just like Kirby can. But I gave him an A- for the year.
I give him a B+. Mostly because I'm judging him like on a shelf, I guess, slightly above Kirby, since Logan already had a full season under his belt. And Logan, I think, did what we wanted to see in the offseason. So we wanted to see a comfortable secondary pitch. He did it. His slider, plus 15 run value this season, after it was 0 last year. And that helped his arsenal evolve immensely. It helped him down the stretch. It helped him not be how he was as a rookie, where he only had his fastball and he was just trying to just throw fastball, and really struggle at times to get swings and misses. Well, that wasn't the case with his slider. The other thing, though, I look at a lot of his hard hit stuff. That's where I think it drops into the B-, because I think one thing we really wanted to see was him to get hit a little less hard. His hard hit rate was in the 11th percentile, which is an improvement from his previous 2 seasons, but still not great. And it leaves him susceptible to some issues in certain matchups. So that's, I guess, where I had there. He still had a great season, over 190 innings, 3.2 Fangraphs wins above replacement, walked just 4.7% of his batters, and his expected ERA, his expected FIP, all very good. But I thought, if I was going to give him an A, anywhere in the A, I wanted to see him as good as Kirby, but he wasn't quite as good as Kirby, so he had to go a notch below.
His F4 was pretty similar to Luis. It was just like a tick or 2 lower, which is why I still gave him the A-. I was like, well, if I'm going to give Luis an A-, by WAR, Logan would warrant the same grade. And what did it for me is, well, you're right. The reason it's not an A or an A+ is because he was still getting hit hard. His fastball wasn't as valuable as it's been in years past, where he did get hit a little harder on that 4-seamer than he has in the previous couple of years. But what really did it for me is what we saw out of Logan Gilbert last year was he got off to a roaring hot start. He was the pitcher of the month in April. He was really good through those first 6 to 8 weeks. And then he hit a wall for a little bit, and he was really struggling for a bit, and he was really struggling for a bit, and it took him a bit to get out of that. This year, I just felt like we had such a model of consistency for Logan Gilbert. It wasn't big hills and valleys. It wasn't an unknown in terms of what you were going to get. Sure, he had his bad starts just like everybody does, but it was much more, you knew much more what you were getting. And that is what I liked out of Logan Gilbert. In that way, I thought he took a huge step because, again, there was just so much more. I use consistency again because that's what it was. You knew what you were going to get out of the guy almost every single night. So I really appreciated that, along with his innings going way up. So that's what bumped it to an A- for me.
And yeah, that's a good reason. So next year, I would say my to-do list for Logan, like George, throw the splitter more. Logan, like George, when he threw his splitter, he got a 46% strikeout rate on that pitch. Now, his command of that pitch escaped him at times, which is why he didn't throw it quite as much. And his slider, right, was pretty good. So he felt just as comfortable, if not more comfortable, throwing that pitch, which was his second most used pitch behind his fastball this season. Again, we'd like to see his fastball get back to the values he had each of his first 2 major league seasons, where it was plus 12 last year and plus 19 in 2021. And it was also his worst pitch, getting whiffs and getting strikeouts, which if that's your pitcher throwing the most, that's not a great combination there. So I think we'd like to see Logan get a little bit of that fastball back, especially since he is someone who has like 100th percentile extension because he's 6'6", and he still throws hard. He throws over 96 miles an hour consistently. So you'd think that would lead to a good fastball. And it had his first 2 seasons, but this season it just didn't work out that way.
I just wonder if some of the time run value stuff can kind of go up and down from year to year. Because we know Logan Gilbert doesn't have a bad fastball, but for whatever reason, it wasn't clicking for him this year. Maybe we'd have to do some digging on that. It's just weird because, again, like his fastball is a good pitch. It's just over the course of 2023, he had issues with it.
Yeah. I think that is a deep dive. It's like Luis's changeup. I mean, right. Scott Service and Jerry Dipoto probably still think Luis's changeup is still a pretty good pitch, but hasn't worked out as much in a Mariner uniform. I mean, that pitch again went from plus 28 to now -9 in the span of 4 seasons.
With Logan, I will say, you mentioned his slider. Can we stop and dive in on that a little bit more for a second? Because what a step that pitch took. You want to talk about how last year it was right at 0, so it was about league average. Look at the jump from 21 to 23. 2021, it was disastrous when he threw a slider. His run value was -9 on that pitch. That thing was getting hit all over the place. Look at now. It was in the 99th percent, or sorry, not 99th, but 95th percentile of breaking ball run value. That's a really good slider that he threw. And those are massive jumps that he's taken in just a 2-year stretch. When as a rookie, he just couldn't land it.
And we're going to draw some comparisons with Bryce Miller's season when we get to him next. But exactly, that pitch is one of the biggest reasons he had all this success this season. One last note for me on Logan Gilbert, and I don't know if people appreciate this enough. This dude has made every single start he's been penciled for since he debuted. Every single one. That's pretty rare. You draft a guy in the first round, he's in the big leagues within 3 seasons, and then he's essentially now has 3 full big league seasons, and he has not missed a single start. He has been durable. He's gone out there every time. We haven't heard a peep from him. We didn't have to talk about Logan Gilbert complaining about getting yanked after 90 pitches. He's just gone out there and he's done his job. No matter what kind of stuff he has that night, he's gone out there, he's picked up the rock, and he's done his best to make the team go forward and win.
I'll tell you what, when we did hear from him, when I talked to him this year, A+ dude. We gave him an A- for his season grade on the mound. A+ dude. Such a good guy with everybody. And you're right, he doesn't complain. He doesn't call out his teammates, anything like that. And on top of that, which I think is like the bare minimum, that you don't put quotes out there to the media, you don't throw your teammates under the bus publicly. It's nothing like that with Logan. In fact, it couldn't be more the opposite. He is just an awesome, down-to-earth guy. It's like Scott and Jerry always talk about. He's the nicest dude ever when he's off the mound, and then as soon as he hits the mound, nobody wants to be near him because he looks like he wants to kill somebody.
What does Logan need to do next year to repeat this grade?
I think he has to keep up with his slider. I think the slider has to stay at least consistent, even if it's not quite as good this next year as it was this year, somewhere in the same ballpark. I think he has to get his fastball back. And I do think the strikeouts could go up a little bit. So his his Ks per 9, it's not bad. It was just under 9. But Logan's a guy that has good enough stuff where it could be higher than that. So I think it would be those 3 things that could really take him a step above next year. Oh, and by the way, he keeps throwing strikes the way he's throwing them.
He sits right now 58th percentile in strikeout rate. Remember, we do have to take into context the strikeout environment of the league itself. So about 23, I think it's 23.8% is league average. So he's slightly above average. I think we both agree his stuff has the potential for him to be well above average. So maybe 70th percentile, maybe a little bit higher than that if he's going to take that next step forward on top of continuing to throw strikes. And again, somehow managing to limit the hard contact, because if Logan really wants to take a step and become an all-star and all that, you can't be getting hit hard within the bottom 10% of baseball. It's really difficult to pull it off when some of these opportunities, teams can just jump in the box and hit you pretty hard. So I think that's where I stand on that. Regardless, though, Logan Gilbert, another excellent 2023 season.